Okay, so this is the third video lecture on the topic of parenting. In this lecture video, I'm going to talk about parenthood, some of the roles, parenting, helicopter parents, and maybe get into parenting styles. Okay, so basically what you have on this slide is you have a list of all the different roles that parents are, expected to perform. If we were in class together, I might ask you for examples, which one do you think about when you think about parenting? Which role do you think about? Like one of the roles that I enjoy the most as being a parent is the one about ritual bearer. And this is, when the the creating rituals, the creating memories for your children, the decorating the Christmas tree, the decorating the Easter eggs, the birthday parties, right? The what do you do? The rituals of the first day of school or the last day of school. That was the part of being a parent that I enjoyed the most. Um, and anyway, so which ones maybe your parents did good, or which ones we would talk about that face to face. The phenomenon of overparenting, sometimes called helicopter parents. I heard of another one the other day. I think it's called lawnmower parents. I don't remember. But if you think about a helicopter as something that hovers, right? And this would be, and psychologists and sociologists all have noted that this is helicopter parenting is not good. That what it does, that what helicopter parents do is they're too involved and it sounds bad to say, but effectively they overprotect their kids so that their children doesn't learn about consequences. They don't learn to make decisions on their own. There's an example where the kids are all wrapped up in bubble wrap, right? And part of, if you remember what we were talking about in the first lecture, part of what parenting is about is helping children understand the consequences of their decisions. And when we're insulating them, when we insulate children, and teenagers and our children so that they have no consequences, they grow up to be kind of entitled and they grow up to be kind of jerks, and they don't learn how to make their own decisions. And, not only are they not necessarily the most pleasant people to be around, certainly as from a teacher's perspective, but this can also create profound anxiety for them, because when they launch, when they finally do leave home, right, they don't have the skills they need, the resiliency skills or the self-confidence to make their own decisions. So helicopter parenting is really not good. It's not good for the kids. It may be something that a parent, and often you think about, that parents, sometimes their style is more about them than it is about their children. So helicopter parents are really more about them. They're doing things that make them feel good and not what's best for the kids, because sometimes what you got to do is kind of let your children make their own mistakes. It's also important to remember that parents are only one of a whole society of influences. When we say, oh, my child will, this is what my kid's going to do, there's lots of other influences. There's peers and schools and religion, right? And we can hope, right? We can hope that we can influence them. There's going to be lots of other um, entities that influence them too. And I think this was one of the hardest things, or one of the most obvious things to me. Every child is different. That may have worked with your first one, but it's not going to work with your second one. Or that may work with your, I remember one of the conversations was with my sister-in-law. That may work with her kid, but that's not going to work with my kid. And, I've often said that if my kids were like in reverse and I'd had my second one first, I would have thought I was the best parent in the whole world, right? But sometimes, but because children are different, we can even approach them with the exact same strategies, or what we think are the same strategies, and it doesn't. And it won't have the same won't have the same consequences. It's also true, and I think this is an interesting idea, that each of your children, let's say you have three, really has a different set of parents, because what that means is that first kid comes along and you're a brand new parent. The next kid comes along and you've learned things from your first parent, so you're going to change things up a little bit, right? The third kid comes along and now you're going to change things up even more. And that's, one of the explanations for why, birth order is because each kid that comes along really is parented different than the other children. And then they have their own personality differences. Okay, so this is, there was a quiz question about helicopter parents. This is also an exam question or a quiz question about parenting styles. For our purposes, we have four parenting styles: permissive, authoritarian, and authoritative, and uninvolved, right? And how these differ is in terms of their responsiveness and their demands. Their responsiveness is a fancy way of saying when a kid when a kid um, wants something, how do the parents respond, or need something, right? Because the needs can be emotional needs, they can be material needs. A want can be I want a hug, or I want new shoes, right? Or I want a baseball bat. So responsiveness is how does a child respond, right? Give attention, love things, and demands are what do the parents expect, right? It could be expect in terms of following the rules, good grades, not talking back, right? And what how these parenting styles differ is the relative responsiveness to demands. In some cases, right, and permissive parents they give their kid whatever they want. You know, they give them privileges, they give them things, they give them time, they give them affection, but they expect nothing. There's no rules, there's no respect, there's no good grades. They just have no expectations, no demands. And authoritarian parents, so basically the permissive kids, they run amok. The authoritarian parents expect, have lots of demands, but don't really give anything in return. So these are kind of like they don't necessarily give them positive regard, positive attention, spend time with them. So these are the kids. Their parents are really strict, but they don't like, and maybe withdrawn or unloving too. Right? Maybe the kids do what they're supposed to because the parents are afraid of them. Which one is that one? That is the authoritarian, the boss, giving orders, do it or else. Then you have, and this should have a star by it, the one that's considered the better, the best option. This is the balance, the friendly boss. This is the high responsiveness and the high demands. Like, look, I expect a lot of you, but I'm going to give a lot to you. I'm going to make it so you expect your children to be respectful. You expect them to follow curfew. You expect them to do good grades, but you will give them the attention they need. You will show up to parent-teacher conferences. They will get what they ask for their birthday, right? And so well, some people say you can't be friends with your kids. I don't believe that. I don't know why you'd have kids and not want to be their friends, right? But you respond to their needs, and then and it's sort of in an ideal world, this is how the world's going to be, right? You do your job well and you get rewarded. And that's how I think of this parenting style. I always said to my kids, like, I only had one rule, and that one rule was don't make my job harder, right? Do as I ask you to do, which is really a lot, and I will give you what you want, right? I will give you your time. I will give you my time. I will give you my attention. But what that means is, you're not going to talk back to me. You're going to show up to school on time. You're not going to, teachers aren't going to call me at work because you didn't do as you needed to do. So high expectations and high response. And then finally, you have the last one on there. You have the uninvolved parent, and they basically do nothing, right? They don't ask anything. They don't give anything. They're just not involved. So for examination purposes, understand the difference between responsiveness. Oh, I guess I have a little thingy here. Understand the difference between responsiveness and demands, and which is considered the best combination. And the best combination is high expectations and high responsiveness. All right, I'm already at 9 minutes, so I'm going to stop here. In the next slide, I want to talk about the 11 principles of effective parenting.